Well, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good night to everyone, wherever you may be across our lovely serverless world. Thanks for joining us live here today for Serverless Office Hours. We are streaming on the AWS Twitch channel and also on YouTube, the AWS Events channel. So great to see you. I'm Julian Wood. I'm a developer advocate who works here with Serverless, and I'm super happy to have the one and only Sridhar Pandey. Sridhar, welcome back to Serverless Office Hours. For people who don't know the journey of Sridhar, tell us what you do at AWS and how come you landed up doing what you do today with Serverless.
Thanks for having me, Julian, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all your viewers. I've been at AWS for a little over 4 years, and interestingly enough, I've been on serverless and Lambda this whole time. I started off looking at observability, and then gradually expanded my charter, and now I excuse me. Now I own and drive and lead the observability charter, as well as operational tooling and the developer experience surface area. And as you can tell, 4 years here, I'm a true believer. So yeah, and
well, it's awesome to have you.
Yeah,
it's awesome to have you. And also, just Sridhar's got a big remit. Like, we've done so many things for observability observability over the years, and also developer experience is such a huge thing. We're focusing on not just Lambda but across all of serverless at the moment. We know there are some things we can do better over there, so yeah, Sridhar's the point person to be able to help us out with that. So also, yeah, send us your questions and comments, which also reminds everybody that we are live, so via the chat we are. Send us your questions and comments. We'd love to hear from you. We always love hearing where people are coming from, because we do have a sort of broad global audience. We also have Argentina represented in the house. Alfredo, thanks for joining us via YouTube. We have APAC, Ritesh Kumar Singh. APAC's a big place. So yeah, we've got Eerie Edits. Hi, everybody. Not quite sure where you are. And Victor, thanks for joining us so far, and plenty of others. So just before we dive into what we're going to talk about today, we haven't done this for a few months, but it's always nice to look back at a few things that's been happening in the world of serverless. So Lambda has partnered up with CloudWatch for tiered pricing and additional destinations for Lambda logs. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. But also, if networking is important to you, Kinesis, we're across AWS, be expanding IPv6 support to many other kind of places. So that's also Kinesis is one of those new services to add some more functionality. SQS has also got FIPS and the whole security kind of thing around that for VPC endpoints as well. If you use Cognito, and many people do, you can now supports an OIDC prompt parameter, and DynamoDB Local is also now accessible on AWS Cloud Shell. I think that's actually really cool. So Cloud Shell, that little button in your console, bring up a shell that's already got your credentials that you logged in. I use it for many kind of things. When we run serverless LAN, for example, we do builds via Amplify over it. You can check for do some cool scripting, and now DynamoDB Local handy over there. In terms of some compute blog posts that have been coming out. Yeah, really sort of interesting bunch. Hybrid workloads with Amazon API Gateway, being able to connect to things on premises and other kind of things. Securing pre-signed URLs. Good friend of Serverless Office Hours, Anton Alexander, has partnered up with Daniel to talk about monitoring network traffic in Lambda functions. That is super cool. The tiered pricing, which we're going to talk about today. Quick service restaurants. A cool way to just connect some quick service restaurants, which is a way that restaurants work with serverless kind of things. And then also some performance tips, which you're always talking about, using strategies with SnapStart. So this is being able to take SnapStart to the next level and have better information for that with you. And also to bring up the last one, how we are from August, we are standardizing the billing for the init phase of Lambda. So this means it's going to be the same across all runtimes, regardless of what you're using, which is going to simplify some kind of things. For a small proportion of customers, this may mean actually a little bit of an additional charge for your bill. But you know what we're going to be talking about today also certainly does offset a lot of that, especially if you're at high scale. So we'll be talking about that today. And then just saying, coming up, we've got a whole event series about serverless GenAI. And Uma Ramadas, who's one of our super experts, has been running this. So it's on the screen, all the details. And it's running this week and next week and carrying on. So there are a whole bunch of workshops, some of them actually in person. I think there's one even happening in Vancouver today as well. Some of them are online. So have a look at the link on your screen. And yes, super useful to be able to find out all about serverless GenAI, which is obviously, I suppose, a hot topic at the moment. So back to today when we're talking about cheaper and more flexible Lambda logging. So Sridhar, just like paint the bigger picture here, even from a sort of philosophical thing. You talked about your history with observability. What are we talking about here with Lambda and logging?
So yeah, let's start from the sort of take it from the top, right? Observability, as you know, there's no doubt about this, and this is sort of an accepted paradigm that observability is critical for running modern applications of any kind, and because you don't want to be in a position where you are kind of in the dark and shooting in the dark on when things go wrong, because things do go wrong, and so there and it becomes even more critical for serverless applications, because you as a developer or a platform owner or an operator, you are not maintaining, or you're not looking at the nitty-gritty of the infrastructure. You've offloaded that responsibility to AWS. So and that brings with it the ephemeral nature, and so on. And so our goal has always been, and I'll talk about it a little bit later on what we are doing about it. But our goal has always been to make it very easy for our developers, our customers, to have observability out of the box, and then give them the extensibility of spanning out from there, branching out from there, and using tools that they would like, tools they have been used to, and so on. So with that in mind, we've always had the batteries included, the plug and play experience with a whole host of CloudWatch services, CloudWatch logs, X-ray, metrics, and you don't have to do anything, honestly, to get started. You can just come in, write your code, and you have observability out of the box. But then we also so that's kind of has been the overall philosophy. And in recent years, we have been constantly making things easier, giving you more and more controls, and introducing a whole host of new functionalities, so that you do not have to basically removing as much of undifferentiated heavy lifting as possible. So this for example, I'll talk about advanced logging controls that we launched about a couple of years ago actually, where now you do not have to bring any additional logging libraries or any logging libraries to configure structured logging if you want to. And structured logging is where most folks are. So we said, why not? Let's make it simple out of the box. Or if you want to do live analytics or do live querying of logs, we introduced CloudWatch live tail log support in the console, and then followed it up with also in the local VS Code IDE. So and then going just beyond logs, we partnered again closely with the CloudWatch team to add support for application signals, which is our very own APM, application performance monitoring tool, where you're not only able to get metrics like TPS and other errors and so on out of the box without any configuration on your part. You can also define custom SLOs and SLIs. So if there's an aspect of the application that is very critical to you and you want to stay on top of it, you can set up various rules and indicators to say that when I hit that mark, I have to take some action so that my application's performance is not downgraded. This could be your response rate, this could be your error rates, this could be your the turnaround time or latency. So those sort of things, and there are more that we can dive into. But broadly speaking, the goal is to make sure A, you have everything that you need out of the box. B, if you want to use something else, you're easily able to extend that. And C, to make sure the coverage is holistic and it is cost effective for you as well.
Yeah, and I mean, just following on, this isn't an AWS only story. There's a huge partner ecosystem. So with Lambda extensions, you can send logs to all partners, and you literally just add a Lambda layer or add some maybe code to your container image. Yeah, don't think our Lambda observability story is just for CloudWatch or X-Ray. Huge amounts of partners, and they're doing amazing things. And if you use that, the cool thing is if you use one of our partners, with your either container workloads or even your on-prem workloads, you can put all your logs into one place, and that could be an option for you as well. So yeah, don't think that Lambda logging means it's only CloudWatch. But the cool thing is because we're AWS, we could do some cool things with CloudWatch as well. But schizophrenic web developer, thanks again for joining us. It's nice to have you back. An interesting question, because we use serverless, we don't need to monitor metrics like RAM, CPU, etc. We need only to store and analyze logs from serverless instances. Interesting. Sridhar, what's your take?
So look, The short answer is yes, but at the same time, customers want insights like these, right? So if you want to monitor metrics like network, IOPS, or memory or CPU, we make that possible for you. So all you have to do is enable Lambda Insights, CloudWatch Lambda Insights, and these are readily available for you, so that you don't have to go instrument those metrics, which can be difficult if you're doing it on your own. But generally, this is a thing that customers told us that, hey, I want to, for example, I want to monitor these, but these are also not something that I look at often. So we kind of made it as an opt-in capability where all you have to do is, if you're using the console, it's just a one-click experience, and if you're not, then again, it's like Julian said, it is built using the Lambda extensions stack, and then all you have to do is add that layer in your function definition, and you're good to go.
I mean, the thing is, you may want to monitor things like RAM and CPU because there's a direct also correlation between cost and Lambda. The more RAM you add to your Lambda function, maybe something's going to run faster, but maybe it's not going to run faster. And so you're going to be, monitoring metrics like RAM is not necessary to see that you're just running out of RAM, but maybe you've configured too much RAM and you could actually reduce your RAM. So you could also use Compute Optimizer, which works with that as well. And things like CPU, well, yeah, I mean, you do sometimes want to understand the CPU ratio that's going. Also, for example, once you have more than about 1.8 gig of Lambda memory you've configured to your function, we're going to allocate a second CPU to that, and it can go up to 6. But if you've only got a single-threaded application, well, you could add as much memory as you like, and your single-threaded application isn't going to use any more of that CPU. So in a way, you're sort of wasting an opportunity there. So yeah, it's different, but there are kind of things to watch as well. And then, yeah, your second question, no, you certainly are not forced to watch, to log everything to CloudWatch. As we just mentioned, you can use the extensions to log, to even pick some partners. From, Datadog to Sumo Logic to Alert Logic, I think, to pay. Surely you'll probably know a few more off the top of my head, but there are a huge amount of logging and observability vendors that can plug in directly, and also S3 and Firo. So that's what we're going to be talking about today as well. So.
Yeah. So to picking up where Julian left, right? We have a whole host of observability vendors who have partnered with us. A lot of them are sort of have gone through this process of basically let's call it certification, for lack of a better term, and they are listed on our developer guide as well. But that's not an exhaustive list. That's just folks who have gone that extra step
certification,
of certification, right? And outside of that, the whole idea behind extending the destinations was to make it easier for you to sort of use whatever other tools you want, or for example, S3 and Firehose are the ones we introduced, but those come with a lot of branching out capabilities, meaning from S3 you can go to a bunch of places. For Firehose you could go to a whole bunch of other places. And so when we talk about it, I'll show you what I mean by that. But no, the short answer is no, you do not have to. We just believe that if you don't want to do anything, you should not have
built
to.
in. Yeah.
So
and you literally just print.log, console.log, and your logs are straight over there as well. And then also the super sort of 2-for-1 superpower, which a lot of people, well, some people don't know, is the sort of embedded metrics format where you just log stuff to CloudWatch Logs and we just create metrics for you. So that is super cool. It's asynchronous, saves you time, saves you money. That's a really good thing. And then Ritesh Kumar Singh said, since we will be getting charged for init phase also, will there be init phase logs available in CloudWatch if init phase produce some logs? So, you can log during your init phase already to CloudWatch Logs. So I'm not sure. Yeah, come back with us if there are any additional things. But that's available now. That's got nothing to do really with init, with the charger for the init phase. You can log, all through all kind of phases of Lambda really.
Yeah,
quite easy to do. Okay, Sridhar. So what are we talking today about? The sort of cheaper logs and more flexible Lambda logging. What does that mean, and what's the sort of motivation for what we're talking about?
So we talked about having things available out of the box, having logs available out of the box where you do not have to set anything up. And one of the things we wanted to make it to where customers did not have to reconcile or sort of reason about, is this going to cost me too much in terms, if I scale my usage of serverless services, or if my application scales, is logging going to be a cost concern, right? And this has been on our mind for a while, and so we wanted to kind of make it easier for you to scale your usage and not have to worry about logging as a concern, right? So that was one of the bigger things. And also this, by the way, this is by no way suggesting that you should indiscriminately log whatever, right? There is always a case to be made for being deliberate about what you're logging, because even with all the filtering and analytical tools and techniques out there, you still don't want to just create, you still want to maintain this a very strong signal to noise ratio. So this is by no means encouragement to say just go log whatever. This is just saying, be mindful of what you're logging, but you don't want to be in the dark. To going back to my earlier point, you should not have to cut corners around emitting the right kind of telemetry data for your application. Now that could be for a test or dev environment, it could be for production. So to make that easy, we basically moved the Lambda logging CloudWatch. In CloudWatch, we classified Lambda logs as vended logs. Now, vended logs, let me take a minute and explain, because this will become very important as we go along. So vended logs are essentially logs from certain AWS services that are priced in a slightly different way. Example is, there is VPC logs, Route 53 resolver logs. Those are classified as vended logs today, and they are priced in a tiered way. So they start at the taking US East 1 as the example, and that's the example I will lean on for the rest of this chat. Taking that example, today Lambda logs in CloudWatch logs are priced at 50 cents per gigabyte, and it's a flat price. Previously. And now with this change, we kind of moved it to a priced model, a tiered model, where it starts at the same price, but as you go on increasing your usage, it can go all the way down to multiple tiers, into going all the way down to 1/10 of the price, that is 5 cents per gigabyte. And this is for the standard class of logs. Now there is another class of logs that the CloudWatch team introduced about 18 months or so ago, that was called infrequent access class, which already was cheaper to start with. It is 25 cents per gigabyte. And we moved that into tiered model as well. So that also goes down to 5 cents. There are 5 tiers through which it goes down as you increase your usage. So, like I said, we've been making attempts at making logging, monitoring cost effective. Infrequent access class was one of those examples, but now we went ahead and put both of those in tiered categories. So, and one very important call out, this can be lost in translation, but which is why I want to make sure that I get the message through, is that the tiering happens not just at Lambda log level. It'll happen at all the vended logs. It'll be per payer ID, per payer account, and it'll happen at the vended log. So no matter where the logs are coming from, it could be coming from Lambda, it could be VPC logs. So long as they're vended logs, the tiering, the aggregation, and the tiering applies at that. So potentially you can receive more discount than what
just from Lambda.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to do anything. This is just this is happening as it's turned on. You're like, oh my word, my Lambda logging's much cheaper. So I mean, just literally to summarize, at a certain scale, your Lambda logs are going to be 90% cheaper.
Yes, at a certain scale, above 50 terabytes of usage, your logs will be priced 5 cents instead of 50 cents.
Okay, so I mean that's dramatic, because I know the weird kind of thing is, we've got some customers who have some pretty busy Lambda functions. You're literally running, hundreds of thousands of concurrent or maybe 100,000 concurrent invokes. I mean, even think of your own, own examples when people are using custom authorizers maybe for Lambda, and they've got quite specific rules that go in there. So every time somebody hits your website, you're maybe running, a few Lambda functions to get your data, a custom authorizer, this kind of thing. These are fast running Lambda functions. They built for super efficiency, but there are lots of invokes, and some customers have told us like Lambda's pretty efficient on a price kind of thing, but the logging charges can sometimes be more than my actual Lambda function charges, specifically if you are logging a decent amount of data in those logs. So yeah, it's amazing that if you are at those high scale, Lambda's no longer something you obviously need to think about your logging costs, but this is just such an easy win that overnight, at a sliding scale, things just get much cheaper, which is the way we like to do things.
Yeah. The no touch point was very critical, right? I think there have been so many changes we've made over the last few years where I remember, this just reminds me, it's not related necessarily with logging, but there was this thing we launched in 2022 was SQS Lambda trace linking. It was driven by the very same mindset, right? If you are a developer, you should not have to go make any changes. You should automatically want, with this launch in November or October of 2022. After that, you will automatically be able to see these traces linked in X-ray. It just reminded me of the no touch experience. So yeah, our focus always has been on going back to that original tenant. You should have to do as little as possible to be able to get your telemetry data in the places that you want them to be in.
Right. And then, Alfredo Pena, thanks for, good question. Is there a way to calculate the cost reduction customers will get?
Yeah, you can. So you can look under. So there are a few different ways. Just Lambda, it's not the most straightforward thing, but you can look under your the cost and usage report. In AWS billing, you can look under cost and usage report. There you'll have to do a little bit of work, but it is calculable. The simplest way would be to just look at, assuming you have a baseline of how much logs you produce on a monthly basis. You could just look at that and apply. And I think this would be the time to plug in either the CloudWatch logs vendor pricing page or the blog post that Julian referenced earlier, where we have a table that shows how the pricing tiers apply. So all you have to do is take that and apply that pricing tier, and you'll have a good idea. It may not be exact, but you'll have a pretty good idea just based off of your last month's usage of Lambda logs. But if you want detailed reports and you want to analyze literally function by function, you have to go in cost and usage report in AWS billing.
Yeah, which is definitely doable.
Yeah,
it's cool. So that's sort of one half of the change, and then the other half of the change is the flexibility story of being able to send logs not to CloudWatch but to other destinations.
Yeah. So this was a pattern that we were seeing, right? Customers were sending logs to CloudWatch, and then from there they would use subscription filters or other mechanisms and send logs to tools like services like S3 and Firehose. Each has its own benefit. And for example, with S3, you could have a OpenSearch stack sitting on it, analyzing those logs, or you could use tools like Athena. Athena or Glue for analysis and querying and so on. So with that in mind, and this was also when we talk to customers, this was something that came up often. And similarly with Firehose essentially basically opens you up to a whole host of things. Firehose supports open HTTP, not a vanilla HTTP endpoint, so you can literally send your logs over HTTP to anywhere. Similarly, there are a bunch of third-party integrations that are built into Firehose, the likes of Splunk and Datadog and so many others. So, and this is also a pattern that customers who use serverless along with containers or EC2 instances, they're already used to that pattern. And so they wanted some sort of consistency. And to achieve that, to deliver on that promise, what we did was we extended our logging support. So previously you'd be able to directly send it to CloudWatch. Now we've extended that to say, well, now you can also send your logs directly from Lambda to S3 and also Firehose. How it works is we're still sort of following the same mechanism so that there's not a big learning curve for customers. Meaning when you send, if you're using the console, let's just say, if you say, I want to send logs to S3, then we take care of a lot of the piping and plumbing, and it goes through the same mechanism so that the experience remains consistent, so that you do not have to hop out and do a whole bunch of instrumentation. And the biggest simplification and the benefit that we are delivering, along with the fact that we are sending logs directly there, is that it is priced cheaper. So these logs are priced starting at 25 cents, not at 50 cents, which is the standard logs pricing. The argument is that you're not using the CloudWatch feature, so you're just going to these destinations. So they start at 25 cents, they're again tiered, and they go all the way down to 5 cents. So now if you're sending your logs from Lambda to S3, you will get a very easier delivery route, and B, you'll get significant price optimization, price reductions as well.
Okay, so are these? Can you log to CloudWatch as well as S3 and Data Firehouse, or is it in sort of either or
It's
scenario?
today. It's just one. You cannot have multiple. But we'll see how that goes. If there is a need for it, and we'll consider it. But today it's only one of those destinations.
Because there's sort of interesting use cases you can think of that, some people use their logging for their sort of as a compliance or something. They need to store logs for a number of years, and they obviously use S3 for that. And then I've heard of customers who sort of want to store logs in a data lake kind of thing for either long-term storage or for some analytics, as you say, but then do want some application logs or something, but they're very out of invokes. Maybe it's only going to log on errors or some kind of thing, and then still within your code you could actually write to CloudWatch logs manually in a way to send things to CloudWatch to do that. So yeah, this just does give you a lot of flexibility to be able to mix and match different services and use the right service serves the job. And I like the Firehose thing of being able to send it anywhere. That is awesome.
Yeah, and that's the idea, right? It's not a one size fits all kind of thing. So talking to customers, what we do realize that they love the out of the box experience, but for some use cases, for whatever reason, it could be a standardization across the organization, or it could just have been an application that they over time gradually moved over from some other traditional compute to serverless, and they were standardized, so they had trained their staff on these tools, and so they generally use a mix and match, and which is where we said you should not have to make that decision of basically this should not be an inhibition for you as a customer to just use one sort of tool. Again, we want to make it simple, and we want to make it effective, cost effective. So and to your point, right, this was the whole point of launching the infrequent access class, that there are logs that you want to store for forensic purposes, for compliance, GDPR, for those reasons, and all you want to do is put them in sort of a class where you don't need to do much for them except for when required, when called upon. So that functionality, that capability isn't going anywhere, and you can very well have that mechanism even today.
Jed C, thanks for joining us via YouTube. Looking forward to sending the data directly to Datadog to save costs. So this is an interesting point, because I suppose there are two ways you could now send your logs to Datadog, because I believe Datadog does provide an HTTP endpoint that you can send logs to, and that's what people would do from, if you're not using an agent. And I think you can use, I mean, Datadog friends, keep me honest here, but even it may not be Datadog, many services which just receive data from an HTTP endpoint, and you can do that. But Datadog actually has a Lambda extension which literally does this for you. So you just add the extension, and you could configure Datadog to send stuff for you as well. So I mean, that's for other people. I'm thinking Honeycomb and Lumigo, New Relic, a whole bunch of other extension partners we had before. So you may not actually have to use Firehose to an HTTP endpoint or S3 with some other thing to send it to Datadog. Use the Lambda extension from Datadog to be able to send it directly for them, and that's going to save on your Lambda logging costs. You've obviously still got to pay for your Datadog costs or whatever other third-party provider you're using. So yeah, multiple ways to get your logs where you need to send them. So should I mean, have you had any response so far? What have customers been saying, or what are people's thoughts?
The response has been extremely positive. We've heard from through almost all possible channels, directly in conversations with customers, or what we are hearing from filtered through multiple channels. A lot of customers are starting to notice that they're obviously the month will end in a few days, and they will actually see it effectuated in their bills. But they're starting to see that how they will be able to, and a lot of people have built models. There are some out there that some folks have published as form of blog post and stuff as well. Shout out to Corey Quinn. He's in one of his last week in AWS blog. There's a pretty cool blog post where they've updated their tooling to let you calculate your Lambda logging cost now. So there's that, and also and the fact that now customers have this optionality that they previously did not have. So they are reaching out, and they're happy with it. And what I think, this is still early days. I know it's been a few weeks, but it's still pretty early days. What I am looking forward to is how customers are able to make the most out of it, not just purely from a a cost perspective, which obviously it is. But now this gives them a lot of flexibility because even if you're using CloudWatch now, you can use a lot of other capabilities of CloudWatch with with a lot more freedom. There are tons of other things. Or for example, if you're using other tools, you can plug them in easily without having to have a constant worry about, well, is it gonna run up my costs? So yeah, so we heard from customers of all stripes, small, large, of all segments, and the feedback is overwhelmingly positive.
Cool. We know Robert Tables makes his decisions, so if Quinnypig approves, that's all that I need. Absolutely. Thanks, Robert, for joining us again. And yeah, Robert does pick up. The vendor-provided Lambda extensions are a really great differentiator. I mean, I did a bunch of works on extensions when that came out as well. It was super interesting, and it's so nice to see how the extension providers, because this is code that a Datadog or a Splunk or a New Relic or a Honeycomb, they provide themselves, but they have been really optimizing their extensions, finding new ways. Some of them even rewritten them in Rust or Go or low-level languages to eke every bit of performance out from that. So yeah, a great ecosystem, and I love the way that Lambda just opened logging and observability to absolutely everybody and anybody. So that is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, agree. And the funny thing is, I shouldn't say funny. The interesting thing is that extensions, obviously we did not have, you were involved in this behind the scenes as well, Julian. So we did not just have observability in mind. We knew that we wanted to, make other sort of use cases be simplified via extensions. But customers and vendors, they surprised us. For example, if memory serves me correctly, someone from GoDaddy published a open policy agent extension. This was a while ago. This was back in 2021 or 2022. Now, and then our own services like AppConfig and Secrets Manager, they built extensions to simplify the governance or the configuration process. And so HashiCorp, for example, has an extension for
Vault.
Vault. Yeah. So there is, and there are a bunch of other ones as well. So, and we always keep an eye on what's going on in that space, and there are a bunch of other use cases that we continue to sort of, for example, the one of the blogs that you pointed out, written by Anton and Daniel, the monitoring one, the monitor network traffic one, that uses Lambda extension for to look at, it uses techniques like ProcFS and so on, but that uses extension. So it opened up a whole host of observability. Obviously has been the dominant use case, but it has opened up a whole host of operational tooling use cases that in some cases we did not imagine that it would come to it, but it's a thing that keeps on giving.
And also you can write your own extensions. So many big organizations have been writing their own governance extensions or security extensions or a whole bunch of things. And yeah, just to pick on the app config extension, I did a bunch of work with that, and that was so cool because app config, you can use it for a whole bunch of things, but something like feature flags for your application is a really good use case. And you may have a separate team which handles your feature flagging or whatever. You plug in the app config extension to Lambda. Obviously, you've got to write some code to access it. And then someone on the other side of your business changes some policy in your feature flags, and literally, a few Lambda invokes later as the extension updates itself in the background. There's no, I need to change an environment parameter on my Lambda function, or I need to do something else. And you've got a certain percentage of customers get a new page on your website or something. Yeah. So that is really cool. So Sridhar, I know you've got some stuff to show us. So should we have a look about how simple this is? And maybe deceptively, it's going to be like, oh, is that all I need to do? Which is some of those good demos where it just highlights the simplicity of what you built.
Yeah. Let me switch over to. I'll keep it simple on purpose because the goal is here not to show a sophisticated use case of using Lambda function. The goal is to show how easy it is to just switch over to one of the other destinations that we. So let me just hop over to the console and and go from there.
Yeah. When you're on your console, I can just bring up the screen.
All right.
Cool. There we go.
All right. Let me start by creating a simple function. I don't know. Let me use a blueprint because I don't feel like writing any code right now. Let me call it logs demo function. I will use all the default settings. This is also me showing that these things work, by the way.
Yeah.
And so I'll leave the code as it is. It's a simple code. All it is doing is going to, going to echo the first key value. So whatever we provide in the first key value, it'll echo it. Now, to produce some logs, to generate some logs, let me just go and do a quick, quick tests. Here's a test event. I'm gonna leave that as is. And so I haven't changed anything. This is a function I just created. The idea is that, if you go to monitor, you'll see that logs are going to, start seeing logs in CloudWatch logs. It's showing up. And
in fact, that's one quick thing you've done there, which people don't often understand, is they click on the view CloudWatch logs, which takes you to CloudWatch logs, but you can just go down that same page on monitor, and under the metrics, you've got the logs. So if you haven't spotted that before, well, there you go.
Yeah, and by the way, while I'm on that, let me go and start a live tail sort of session from here. What that does is it provides you logs in real time. So like, and here you'll start seeing logs, and this is specific to this function. So this is not and this is something we introduced last year. The idea here was you should not have to you should not necessarily have to go and look at the logs after some separately. You could essentially giving you the real-time debugging experience. Let me see. Not sure what happened here.
You did need to invoke it, don't you? Or has it?
Yeah.
It should have picked up the last log.
Yeah, I had not invoked it, so I'll go do that now. Let's do test, and let me just hit a couple.
This is proving that we are doing things live. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. So and it keeps listening for new log events. So as soon as the logs become available, it'll show up here, and you can expand this view. You can do a whole host of things. You can do
and filtering and all that kind of thing, which is cool. Yeah.
So and you can do other functions as well. By the way, you could select multiple other functions and do it, So there is that. I'm gonna hop out of this view because the main goal was to show something else.
And that live tail is also available in the IDE, if I'm not mistaken.
Live tail is
cool in the actual local IDE in VS Code. So
yeah, live tail. We introduced live tail in IDE only a couple months ago. The live tail experience we launched last year in October, and live tail in IDE was in March. And the goal is that you should have this. You should be able to have this experience wherever you are, not just in the console, because not everyone builds all applications in the console, as nice as it might be. So now here are some of the logs. If I click on this log stream, it'll tell me more about it, or I could just go to CloudWatch, the view that Julian was talking about. I could just jump over to CloudWatch logs, and it'll show the log group. And again, I have not made any changes right here. This is just what's default. And so this is all the logs here. You can do logs inside queries and so on. Now, with that said, let me jump back over, and now in my configuration, I will change to a different destination. So, for example, and before going there, these are some of the changes that I was talking about. Let me just show you here. So, things like application signals and X-ray. This was new, something we launched last year, and then in logging configuration, this is where I'm about to go. So there is log format, text, and JSON. If I select JSON, then I have some additional controls like selecting the application log level and system log level. Just real briefly, so application logs are the log that your function code generates. Anything you write, console.log, sysout, anything you write. And system log level is the log that Lambda generates, logs that Lambda generates while executing your function. So these are report lines for every phase of the life cycle, that is init, invoke, shut down, restore, and those phases we produce some logs. If you're using JSON format, the logs are more detailed, but again, you can control the verbosity using the info is the default for both, but you can go up and down, as you can see here.
That's a good control. So also, for example, for the system log levels, some people don't want to see the report line or the init line for a billion invokes, and so you can just take that down to warn, save money with your logging, but still have your good application log level when you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great call out. So what that means is for high throughput invocations, right? The info can be a lot of noise sometimes. So what you would want to do is you want to turn it down to maybe when something goes wrong, and that's what the warning level is. It only emits system logs when there is an error. So now you do not have to worry about the fact that what happens if there's an error. I want logs. So we kind of made that simple for you. So now you can just rest in peace, saying, rest easy, saying I want logs, but only when something goes wrong. Because like Julian said, for a billion invocations, you don't want to see a lot of report lines. So there is that capability. So that in mind, I'll just, to keep things simple, I'll switch back now. Here is this was not available previously, so this is the new control. Now you have two additional options: Amazon S3 and Firehose. I'll choose the S3 option here. Now, what I did was, I was playing around with it earlier, so I went ahead and set up a subscription filter just so that I don't have to go through the mechanism. But if you do want to go through that, there is a page. This is described very well here. All the steps. It's just a few steps. This is not new, by the way. The setting up of subscription filters for your log group is a existing thing. All we've done here is, I went ahead and set that up, and I said, this is the log group where I want to send the logs to. The mechanism, and I touched upon this earlier, is the logs get sent to a new kind of log group in CloudWatch called delivery log group. And from there, depending on where you have configured it to, either S3 or Firehose, it will end up there. This also means that you'll not be able to go in CloudWatch and check this log group and be able to filter and look at logs. This is just a conduit mechanism. This was just to keep the mechanism simple. Customers are very familiar with the idea of log group. We said, why not just use that construct instead of building a new integration?
So we do have a question from Pradyum Yadav, and is linked to this. CloudWatch log ingestion costs is way more than storing it in the cloud in CloudWatch. Is there any possible cheaper alternative without modifying my function code? So what made me think of this as well is, are you paying CloudWatch ingestion logs and then sending it to S3, or is it going sort of straight to S3? That's the first part, and then we can sort of chat about the actual question.
Right. You're not paying CloudWatch logs ingestion cost at this point. So if I'm sending to S3, you're just paying one flat charge of, which is, you can think of it as ingestion, you can think of it as delivery, but it is one flat charge of 25 cents, starting at, not flat, sorry, tiered pricing, but one charge of 25 cents, starting at 25 cents, going all the way down to 5 cents in the lowest or the highest tier, depending on which way you look at it. Lowest price, highest volume tier. And then the logs will end up in S3 or Firehose. You would not see an additional CloudWatch logs ingestion cost there.
Okay. And then for the question, the cheaper CloudWatch pricing, is that on the ingestion side or on the storage side, or a combination of both?
That's an ingestion side. The storage pricing is not something we've heard customers talk about.
But then you can use infrequently accessed. So in a way, you could use infrequently accessed for the storage part. So so probably the story is what we've recently announced is the cheaper ingestion cost for CloudWatch, so up to 90% cheaper. That is your alternative without modifying your function code.
Yeah, true. And by the way, for the infrequent access class, the price already was lower, and it gets even cheaper, right? So it started at 25 cents. It still starts at 25 cents, but now it goes all the way down to 5 cents. So either way it goes, depending on what your use case is. If you just want to use it for, purposes of forensic or post-facto analysis, after the fact analysis, you have the infrequent access class. But if you want to use things like, EMF that Julian described earlier, logs inside querying, or the advanced querying where the investigative things that, our CloudWatch teams have launched, some of them last year, all of that will be available to you if you use the standard class. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and do save. And so now my function is saved, and it has been saved to send logs to S3. Just quickly, let me verify that the configuration, actually took effect. Here you go, it did. So I'll just open it on the side, and then I'm going to do some, tests just to generate some log data, and then we will go take a look at it in my S3 bucket that I just created. And before going there was another piece. This is the log destination. This is the log the log group. Sorry, this is the log group that is created in CloudWatch, and you can see here, you would not be able to. You'll not be able to do much here. This is just a. Sorry, this is the log destination. My bad. It's a bucket, and this is the CloudWatch log group. And this is the log group in CloudWatch where you will be able to see the. This is the original one where the logs were sent, but where are the log group? Okay, yeah. So you'll not be able to see the logs here, but they are there just for you can see that you have created a log group that has
a empty.
Yeah. And now let's see, because you can see here the configuration and the subscription filter. It tells you the subscription filter, for example. Yeah. You're not able to modify anything here. The whole point is to keep things simple. So we have purposely restricted some controls. Now let's see if the logs are here already. US East 1. This is all right. So I'm just gonna.
So they're compressed as well if it's ZST at the end.
Yeah, it is compressed. Now you can download, and I'm not going to. I can show you a different example, perhaps. Well, I don't have it open, but you can download it. For example, if I download it and it'll go on my laptop, and then I'll be able to unzip it, and then
maybe be able to view your logs.
Yeah. I'll be able to view my logs and go from there. But that's a standard policy. There is nothing new about that in S3. So this is essentially how you go from having the standard everything configured by default with CloudWatch logs, and then switching over to a different destination and going back to going and checking the logs there. The same can be configured with Firehose as well, where you can have the logs going to Firehose, and from there you can have the logs going somewhere else. Like it could be your HTTP endpoint if you're running a DIY monitoring setup, or it could be one of the various observability vendors who we have integrations with. So that's that, Julian. I think I'm done with the demo piece here.
Cool. And then, just Alfredo Pena says, this CloudWatch to S3 configuration works only for vended logs. Is that a way to think about it? Or no, vended logs is just the way it's charged rather than...
Yes. Yeah. So think about it as nothing in terms of how your logs behave has changed. Nothing in terms of how you should write logs has changed. The classification is a pricing tool. Think of it as that way, where we've classified the logs as vended logs. And this is for Lambda logs only. And so now when you write your logs, whether they go to CloudWatch or whether they go to any other destination, they're now classified as vended logs. And that's how you're able to get the pricing, the tiered pricing and the overall cheaper cost of logging.
Yeah, but then also realize if you are sending logs to S3, they're not vended logs, and you're not going to get the pricing discounts from CloudWatch, but you're going to be able to take advantage of S3's tiered pricing to save money there. So think of the S3 as one bucket of logs, and CloudWatch, I don't want to say a bucket because that's going to confuse things anyway, but that's what you think about it.
Right, and this is pretty well laid out in our pricing tables. If you look at, let me pull that up and share the link where.
Cool. I think that was is that in the same? That's in the same blog post, so we can.
Yeah, it's in the blog post as well.
Cool.
Exactly.
I think that as well. Yeah, and while we're just there, good questions from Pradyum Yadav as well. When we configure the logging level in the function, is only the log level data stored in CloudWatch, or all data stored, but we only see the log level data? No. So you are saving money if Lambda does not even send. So if you send your system logs, for example, for only error, Lambda doesn't even send the info or the debug logs to CloudWatch. So if you are thinking about saving costs or you're needing to, then that's definitely a way that you can do that as well.
Yeah, this is filtering happening at the source. This is in fact built into the runtime. So the idea that, think of it as instead of you bringing a library and doing all of this, we're doing it for you.
Yeah, so if you're using console.log in your function of choice, when console.log writes out to the runtime then makes a decision of whether that's actually going to persist to CloudWatch and goes to the sort of back-end piping of Lambda that automatically you don't need to worry about. But so yeah, that's literally done very much at the source. So yeah, I suppose Alfred is trying to sort of tease apart, but it seems that the logs are sent to S3 from CloudWatch. How is this only works from Lambda?
So the logs are, the piping mechanism we've extended. So if you think about it, the subscription filter mechanism has existed. We have sort of, extended it to where when you send Lambda logs to to S3 with obviously some indication that this is supposed to go to S3, then CloudWatch logs will do the delivery to that destination for you. And not sure what you mean by how this only working for from Lambda. That's how it is built. So like I said, it will be indicate in the header or the payload that is sent that this is log destined for. And actually, you're indicating this even before, right? When you are setting up the subscription filter, or when we set up the subscription filter, we are already kind of establishing the path. So anything sent on that pipe will end up in S3 or Firehose, whatever the destination is configured.
But you haven't got an additional charge of, oh yes, you're already paying the 25 cents per gig, but oh yes, you must always also pay for CloudWatch. No, it's one transparent open fee. So, and it's a sort of technical plumbing detail that those logs actually get routed via CloudWatch initially to get to S3.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, we've covered all the logging kind of things. What else is interesting that is sort of going on in observability and developer experience space for serverless? Thinking of a couple of kind of things of any kind of things we're working on as well, or also what kind of feedback are you looking for to be able to think of our observability or developer experience journey? I said there's a lot of work going on. I know one or two things behind the scenes. I promise I won't tell, but there'll be cool things going on.
I would.
What kind of feedback would you like?
So yeah, for real quick, rounding up, for developer experience, we've been investing heavily in developer experience. Some of those are definitely coming through, as you would have seen. For example, since last year, we've had at least 3 or 4 different launches where we have made the experience of using local ID. In this case, we're talking about VS Code ID in particular, because that is where most of our developers are currently using. And we made the experience very simple. So we not only did that, we also brought the experience to console. So to drive familiarity, if you're a VS Code user, you should be able to use same kind of tool layout, walkthrough experiences, and so on. And as part of that, we also added the live tail experience that I talked about. Then you may have heard that we have a pretty significant roadmap planned for our developer tooling, local development tooling, SAM and SAM CLI. So there will be keep an eye on this space. There will be more to come in some time. And the feedback would be, we want to hear from developers. How do you like, what are some of the main challenges? What is working? What is not working? Things that are working, would absolutely love to double down on, make that simpler. Things that are not working, we are committed to making that simpler so that you have the best possible experience. Whether you are a new developer just starting on serverless, or you've been here, love the idea, but then run into some paper cuts, we want to absolutely get rid of every single one of them.
And I mean, 100%, just to reiterate, Sridhar and other product managers are literally listening to your feedback. I see some of the mechanisms internally that we use to gather that feedback, and that is looked over and done, and sometimes they're bundled into some bigger things where we can make some bigger impact. But yeah, promise you, PMs are really listening, and AWS is really listening to your feedback of the things you want to know. I mean, most of the things we're building is based on customer feedback, so that just shows you that the comments you do and everything makes an effort. Just quickly before we sort of do end, Corrick joining us on Twitch says, hello, I just got here. What did I miss? A lot. We talked a lot about Lambda logging, but that prompted me to say that since you did join us on Twitch, well, you can actually view the recording, which does persist on Twitch, but there's also another place on YouTube, the AWS Events channel, and that's quite easy to look at live, and you can search for Serverless Office Hours. So yeah, all of these, Twitch has a certain amount of time, I think, when they age out, but all the episodes do persist on the AWS Events YouTube channel. So this, and lots of other live streams are there as well. So I did see that, and I thought did see that as well. Daniel, thanks for joining us again from Sao Paulo. And yeah, Daryl, appreciate the feedback and the comment to see the Lambda team always adding improvements and helping with costs. Yeah. I love to see that as well. Some people say, oh yes, of course, Lambda's got an incentive to have expensive logging and all that kind of thing. But here we go, straight away we, making logging simpler and cheaper for people. And there's some of the numbers I've seen internally is quite amazing what some people are going to be able to save on their logging with doing absolutely zero. So that is super cool. Anything else, Sridhar, that you want to bring up?
Yeah, I think we are also, I'd be curious to see how is the whole sojourn with Gen AI going for serverless developers. Yeah. This is an area we have our ears to the ground on particularly, and our team launched something called the Lambda MCP server, which is essentially the idea of running your Lambda function as a tool for an MCP server. So go check that out. This is available on AWS Labs. Yeah. We absolutely keep looking for feedback in that area. Is there anything we could do better?
Yeah. This is super cool. I did a talk at Serverless Days in Belfast 2 weeks ago where we demoed this, and two different bits of functionality. You can use Lambda, use MCP locally and run any Lambda function. And this is cool because you could have a Lambda function that reads and writes things from your private database, maybe in your VPC, all secure and everything, but an MCP client and tool can use that. Or you could also, there's a cool demo example in there where a GenAI code assistant, for example, or something will generate code, upload it to Lambda, run it on the fly, and get the results. And it actually generates the code for you, installs Python dependencies, does the whole thing, and then spins it down because it's all secure and everything. That is a great use case as well. And there are a whole bunch of other ways where you can also use Lambda as an MCP server. So you can run, the MCP server code itself in Lambda. And in Serverless Office Hours in a few weeks' time, we are going to be covering that in depth. And plenty going on in the MCP server world. I'm sure we'll have some more things that are coming out because it obviously is the hot topic. Yeah. So, Kurik, one more question. We do have a minute. I'm used to create systems with microservices and containers, then running them on Kubernetes. Can I create the same functionality with API Gateway and Lambdas now? Did the cold start from Lambdas get improved? It is a bit of a general question. I can't promise that you can run everything on top of Kubernetes with API Gateway and Lambda, and whether that is the best use. Kubernetes is certainly great for some kind of things that may be going to be stateful and hanging around for a long time. But the last part of your question I did want to talk about is the cold start from Lambdas get improved. They get improved all the time. There are so many ways, tips and tricks and things that the Lambda team has done to optimize it, and also that you can do. You're in charge of your own code. You can optimize your own code, and cold starts can dramatically reduce. And we've got a whole bunch of other technologies from SnapStart to something called provision concurrency. So you can have a look at that. I actually did a talk at reInvent last year calling best practices for serverless developers. I can't quickly add the link, but search that up on YouTube. It's got a whole bunch of things for doing cold starts. And also remember, cold starts impact only a very small percentage of your Lambda workloads. And last week in Serverless Office Hours, we had Matthew Napoli, who runs the open source Bref, which is PHP on Lambda. And he sees 2 billion Lambda invokes running every month. And I think it's under 0.5% of them are cold starts. So yes, cold starts are there. Plenty of ways to mitigate against them, but they only impact a small number of invokes. So hopefully that can help you. And yeah, we'll be happy to help. If you have some more info with some more workloads, get in touch with myself. I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. But Sridhar, thanks so much for coming on. It's lovely to hear from the people actually building Lambda themselves as the product managers, and we've got teams of engineers who are building the functionality as well. Many more to come. So thanks for telling us more about Lambda logging and how you can save costs and log to more locations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And a quick shout out to Matthew Barker, my partner in crime from CloudWatch Logs team. He's a PM there as well. He was slated to be here. He could not because of some unforeseen circumstances. So I just wanted to make sure I gave him a quick shout.
No, definitely. I appreciate that. And also, we've got producers behind the scenes who do a great job making sure this all runs smoothly. So Jeffrey and Kian, thank you very much. To the rest of you, we're actually starting something exciting next week. We are going to be doing a Lambda hackathon for most of June. So yeah, we'll put some more details on the social medias. But yeah, we'll have some cool serverless office hours where we can do some fun hacking, and there's some cool prizes to be won. So yeah, we'll get more details after that. But same time, same place next week for some cool Lambda hackathon stuff. Goodbye, everybody. Bye. Thank you for joining us. Bye bye.